Hello and welcome to the Audio Epics podcast. I am Domien.
And I'm still Eline.
Yes. And for today we have a short little episode, or at least I think it's going to be short, but you never know, in which we answer some of the questions sent in by our lovely listeners. And the first of these questions comes from, well, first, of course, we start with questions that were submitted by our patrons. And the first one comes from
Joseph Stowell, who is one of our Grand Generals on the Patreon community.
And what was Joseph's question?
I would love to find out more about the character Gustav. Like, are any of his stories real? I feel like it could be a spin-off series. Well, that's a great question. Joseph.
Yeah. So in Witch Hunter, Ludlov meets a character called Gustav Finsterdunkel, who likes to, tell tall tales, in which he features as the main hero. And, whether any of his stories are true or not, that remains kind of an open question. But if you want to know more about him, we have some good news. There will be more of him in our next story, which will take place before Witch Hunter. So it will actually be how Ludlov and Gustav met for the first time.
And it takes place before the Beasts of the Western Wild. So our patrons already know this exclusively, what the story is going to be about and what the title is going to be.
Yeah, and again, whether his stories are true or not, or to what degree they are true, we kind of like to sort of leave that as an open question. I like to think that there's always a kernel of truth in there, hidden somewhere amidst massive exaggerations.
Yeah, we kind of have ideas about that, and we have actually thought of making a spin-off. So at some point, yes, we really want to make a spin-off with Gustav as the main character. Actually, the idea of a series might be interesting because we were thinking of just a standalone spin-off story, but yeah, who knows? Maybe a serialized series with a couple of episodes. Yeah,
the fun thing about that is that it could be very different in tone. When you have Gustav as the protagonist, I think, it would be very, very different. Okay, and then Amy Austin, who is also a Grand General and who was our first patron ever, sent us actually a bunch of questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy. We love that you're so enthusiastic and you have so many questions. So what's the first one?
First question is, what is the age difference between Ludlov and Samina? Their relationship throughout is one of father-daughter, friends, and even a bit romantic. Samina is in her early 20s and Ludlov is in his early 40s, so I guess you could say that he is old enough to be her father, but only just, so that gives it kind of a tension, I guess.
Yeah, because, we all know couples like that.
Sure. But, the way I'd like to think of it is, it's a character dynamic that I really like. That was also in The Will of the Woods. A male and a female character who have a deep bond that is sort of the core relationship of the story, but it's not an overtly romantic relationship. There's an element of tension in that. And again, like with Gustav's stories, is there perhaps some romantic dimension to it? I like to leave that open to the listener's interpretation. They certainly care deeply about each other, but yeah, it's part of what makes it quote unquote romantic is that it isn't explicitly romantic, if that makes sense.
Right. Like they did with Scully and Mulder for a very long time.
Yeah.
But then,
for the X-Files fans out there.
Yeah, but the aim was obviously that they should end up together.
Yeah.
At some point.
I think that was kind of a growing tension. Here I see it more as, I would never imagine them as a couple. That was never where the story was supposed to be going. But yeah, I think it's just that there's multiple dimensions to their.
Perhaps a kind of mentorship, also in a way.
Yeah, it's this mysterious connection that happens, and I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, and I also think without spoiling anything, that if you reach the end of the story, then you actually learn that there is this bond between him and Samina because of her likeness to someone he loved. So
right, yeah, of course, yeah. There's that element, and of course, as for father-daughter, well, yeah, I guess you could see that in it as well. It's kind of multifaceted.
Okay, so next question from Amy. Where did your inspiration for Ludlov come from?
The inspiration for Ludlov? Well, it's multiple things. As I've mentioned before, I like the Warhammer fantasy setting, Warhammer fantasy roleplay in particular. And in that game, you could play as a witch hunter, and they had these illustrations in the books, etc. And I just loved the whole concept and the look and the feel of that, with the tall, broad-rimmed hats and everything. And just, well, the whole, there was a whole look and feel to that kind of character that I found very intriguing. And then, funnily enough, I saw the movie Van Helsing when it came out in 2004. And in that movie, Hugh Jackman, who plays Van Helsing, had a kind of sort of thing like that going on. But unfortunately, the movie went for this totally kitsch, campy, over-the-top, pulpy approach. Which, I mean, okay, that's what they did. But it kind of made me think, oh man, with that kind of a character, this mysterious monster hunter type character who, I thought you could do something much
cooler with it.
Yeah, something with more depth and a bit more character, and I mean not as ridiculous, basically. So that's really where the inspiration come from. But then later on, I found out about this character Solomon Kane. But then I was already writing it, and I think I'd even already finished the first version of it when I found out that actually the witch hunters in Warhammer, etc., they were all inspired by Solomon Kane, who was this character from stories written by the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian as well, Robert E. Howard. And then there was a movie that came out of Solomon Kane, which I watched, and I did like that. That movie made me say, yeah, that's sort of more like what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I loved it. But so did you dislike Van Helsing?
I thought it was entertaining, but it's
just you felt like you could do much more with the character, like you Jackman's character.
It's entertaining if you really switch off your brain,
which is kind of nice from time to time.
It is what it is.
That kind of takes us to the next question. How long did it take to write Witch Hunter?
Well, before I answer that, first, let me have a sip of my tea, which is calming tea. And the label says, be giving, forgiving, compassionate, and loving.
You're filling your podcast with stupid wisdom from tea.
Yep.
I'm drinking, I think it's called licorice root tea. Because I kind of have heavy stomach.
Not root leaf juice.
Yeah, root leaf juice.
Okay.
Totally get a company to produce it and then.
Yeah. So, yeah, to answer that question, actually, we had to do a bit of research for this.
Yeah, because it's been such a long time since.
Yeah.
I know when I met you in 2007, it was finished. Witch Hunter, the first version.
Yeah. So to be more precise, originally, Witch Hunter was an audio drama that was 3.5 hours long. So that's a lot shorter than what it is now. And the idea for that came back in 2006. And I managed to write and produce that in 1 year because I had a lot of time on my hands back then. And then sort of gave it a rest. The first version we made with music from movies in it. And we didn't have our own score yet. So I used music from, movies like Batman and and maybe even Van Helsing, I'm not sure.
Probably.
And so that's what I kind of made it for my own entertainment, and friends, etc. But then I wanted to be able to release it to the public, and Peter came along, who made the wonderful score for it, and that was a few years later, and then we released that, and then we won the Ogle Award in 2010, which was a podcast award. And after that, that's when I started thinking, I'm not really happy with this version of the story. There was all kinds of stuff wrong with it, but one of the main, I didn't like the ending. I was very unsatisfied with the ending. And I felt like the setting had a lot more potential for more depth and more detail, and there was more that could be done with it than this 3-hour audio drama was able to show. And so I started rewriting it as a novel. But first I did that in Dutch because I was thinking of publishing it over here in Flanders. But then I realized that the audience for people who like fantasy is much bigger abroad. And so I wrote it in English, and then I thought I missed the audio part of this. And so then I thought, okay, we have to do this as a dramatized audiobook. That's when that idea came up. And we did a crowdfunding in 2014, and that helped us to create it. And so we finished and published it in April of 2016. That's the story of Witch Hunter. As for The Beast of the Western Wilds, that was a lot quicker. The idea came, and 6 months later, it was written. And 4 months later, it had been recorded and edited, and it was online. The Beast of the Western Wilds just was a smooth ride. Came much more fluently than Witch Hunter.
It didn't come that fluently.
No, okay, but more fluently.
Yeah.
I mean, the many false starts of Witch Hunter, it's a long and boring story, as you've probably just noticed. As for The Will of the Woods, well, that started way, way back as De Wezens van het Woud, which actually translates as The Creatures of the Forest, but we wanted to keep the alliteration, and so the English version is called The Will of the Woods. That was, I don't know, I wrote that very quickly. I had an idea. I was inspired by a tree that I had seen in the park, and the illustrations of Brian Froud for The Dark Crystal, etc. And okay, I thought I have this fairy tale story that I want to write. It went very quickly, and then I got stuck at one point in the story.
It was with the rats, right? And the mirror? Yeah.
So originally, when Mirelia needs to find that mirror the Wraith has to look into the mirror to see his past. Originally, the idea was, they have to find the mirror, and it's hidden somewhere in a mermaid castle on the bottom of the lake, and they have to get there. But how do they get there underwater? And
in the realm of Queen Lyagora.
Yeah, and so I had no idea how I was going to do that whole part of the story. And then after months of just being completely stuck, I just thought, you know what? I'll just skip it. let's say the rest already have the mirror. They got it in one of their raids or adventures in the past, and they have it in their treasure room, and there it is. And I think maybe 2 weeks later it was finished.
Yeah.
And
sometimes the easiest solution is just skipping something. But it could be a very cool spin-off, actually.
How Captain Wink-Eye found the mirror.
Yeah. Make Captain Wink-Eye the main character.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we made that. That was in 2007. We released it on CD. The CDs got sold out. We made a new edition on CD, then gave it a long rest. Did Witch Hunter.
The CDs were in Dutch as well, right?
Yeah, the Dutch CDs, yeah.
I remember especially, they were in Flemish Dutch, which is what we speak in Belgium. And the Dutch, so from the Netherlands, they really liked the CD. So actually, I think most of the CDs got bought by Dutch people.
Yeah.
And when we asked them why they were so popular in the Netherlands, they told us that they thought our accent was cute. So
yeah, so this is maybe a nice little tidbit, but yeah, so in the Netherlands and in Flanders, we speak the same language, but we pronounce it very differently. It's sort of like UK English versus American English.
Yeah, because we also have a slight difference in vocabulary here and there.
Yeah, like UK versus USA.
Like our word for is actually their word for which is kind of makes things complicated sometimes.
Yeah. But the way Dutch is pronounced in the Netherlands, it's a much more of a harsh and guttural sounding language, like something spoken by orcs or something. Whereas our version is very soft and melodic, and we're more like the elves. So
I hope they don't delete the YouTube video because of my foul language. Maybe you should put bleeps in it.
Yeah, it was very shocking. I'm deeply shocked.
I feel kind of embarrassed.
So it's okay. And so we did the English version of The Will of the Woods after Witch Hunter. This is getting complicated. Anyway, we finished that in 2012 because that's when we won the Ogle for Will of the Woods. And then we first published it on SoundCloud or something, but then finally we put it on YouTube in June 2016, and it's been there ever since.
Yeah, something like that.
Putting it on YouTube was the best decision ever.
Yeah.
It really was. That's really how we got an audience.
I think most of you discovered us through YouTube.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
I think I know how, but that's for another question that's still coming up. So yeah, okay, what's the next question?
I thought maybe since we've been talking about how long you've been writing these, and we've been talking about different editions, we could handle the next question from Amy first. What made you decide to do these books in English?
Right. Well, Flemish people are a lot like hobbits, as we've mentioned before. And hobbits are not very adventurous. They like, football, as in soccer, you would say in the United States. They like cycling. Yeah. They like beer and French fries and money. They like money.
Yeah, they like money a lot.
Yes.
And also they like grey bricks. And they like auto-tuned popular songs.
So my point is that Flemish people aren't very imaginative, and there's just not much of a fantasy culture here. So that's one reason why we did it in English.
If we mention Tolkien, then a lot of people would think we were talking about an illness or something.
No, I mean,
faraway location.
it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. But back in the day, it really was like
before
that.
the Big Bang Theory, we were like aliens.
I mean, yeah. Geekdom is everywhere now, and it's over here too. But it's certainly had a difficult journey into our country.
But actually, that's a good way to put it. When things get here, it's fine. It's like the final stage, right? When things get popular around the world, we are like the last people to start, because we just like to keep quiet and watch the rest of the world and see if this works. And if it really, really works and everyone's doing it, then we might try it.
Yeah, I mean that's what the Flemish are like today. It wasn't always like that. Back in the 17th century, very different story. But today, that's what we're like. And yeah, okay. So there's that. There's also, of course, the fact that there are about there are about 6 million Flemish people and about 20 million Dutch people. So I don't know how many people in the world speak Dutch. There's some other countries where they speak Dutch, Suriname. And
we're not mathematicians, but we kind of assume that there are a lot more English-speaking people in the world than Dutch-speaking.
Basically. So we thought if we like to have an audience, that's another reason to do it in English.
Plus, we love the English language. We both studied it at university. And we didn't actually meet there, but we did have a couple of the same courses, and we actually did the same. We have the same study background. Let's say.
It's probably funny if you're listening to us, because if you hear us talk, we probably have a kind of a weird accent. But, well, that's because we aren't native speakers, so...
We know we have accents.
We know we are aware of our...
Truly sorry about
we are aware of our accents. And I know we sound super Euro trash.
Euro trash. Okay.
But Amy had another question.
Yeah. So did you both take classes to become audio actors?
No.
So no, we didn't.
No.
We didn't.
That's it.
Germanic languages, and Domien picked linguistics, and I picked literature. But I always loved acting. I know when I visited my grandniece, we were making our own plays in the attic, and as a toddler and in primary school, I know my first part in a school play was a tree in Snow White, and then I played the fairy godmother when I was like 7 in Cinderella. Then I did some amateur theater. I still know my first play was a graduation project. I think I was about 16 then. And then I started doing these acting and musical classes, which I really enjoyed. I joined a musical group, and then I did theater for children, which I really enjoyed, because children are such a really grateful audience. I really love them. And then I think I quit amateur theater and I did some improv. A lot of improv in different groups. And then, as soon as we started producing these audio dramas and dramatized audiobooks together, I kind of felt like, I was satisfied. I could act again. And I think voice acting is really, really cool, because I'm kind of shy. And it comforts me to hide behind a microphone instead of being on a stage. It's a lot more comfortable. So actually, I kind of like it, and you can really push your limits that way. Also, because of audio epics and the parts we play in it ourselves, we did get some voiceover opportunities afterwards, and that made us start our voice over company based on our experience with voice acting. So that was great. And I would really still like to work on accent very hard because to Domien it kind of comes more naturally, but I think my accents really suck. They're all over the place, and also I think it's kind of hard to act a part really well, to immerse in a character, and then think about your accent as well. I think that's like when you start driving and you have to think of all these little actions you have to do at the same time. It's kind of like that. It's really hard. But, it's fantasy. That helps.
Yeah. For me, well, I can do an accent if I can read it, I'm much more in my element and much more at ease if I have a written text in front of me and I know this is what I have to say, versus like now when I have to sort of, improvise, it doesn't come as fluently. And
exactly.
That's when we get these bizarre in-between accents that we have that don't really, they're not quite English, they're not quite American, they're just kind of this European mishmash of influences.
English.
Yeah, I think I can pull off a more realistic accent if I've got the lines in front of me.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's easier. Yeah, when we get a script from a client, it's for a YouTube video or a commercial. That's a lot easier to do than just.
But the fact that we're doing fantasy is kind of it is kind of a nice save, because I wouldn't dare to, for example, say, oh, you've got to play a guy from Glasgow or or a guy from London, whatever. I couldn't possibly do that in a way that's believable. I guess Ludlov sounds kind of English, but I don't think. I don't think if an actual person from the UK would listen to it, they would say, yeah, it's kind of this vaguely English sounding type accent, but it's not really real what a real English person would sound like.
Yeah.
So
that actually answers our next question already. Did you pick fantasy to cover up your horrible accents? So we've covered that. I can't remember who sent it.
I think it was you.
No, it's a joke. So the next one who sent us questions is Matt Patain, and he's the only creator in our Patreon community. He used to be...
Which we mean he has the creator tier.
Yeah, which is the highest tier. It's the ultimate...
Sort of the patrician tier.
Yeah, so you got the saint, and then you have the creator. It's like, master of the...
Of the universe.
Patreon community. Yeah, the master of the Patreon universe. So we're going to use his name, by the way, in our next story, because that's what we promised.
That's what we promised, and yes, we have. We know how we're going to do it.
Yeah, and also we're helping him monthly with his own writing. I'm very curious about that. We're very excited to meet him, actually. So here goes his question. Do you have any interest in doing a short story from any other character in the universe?
Well, as we've already mentioned, yes, Gustav would be a cool idea. If, of course, Aaron, who played Gustav, wants to take part in it.
Because he did it so well, I think the character just... A lot of people really love the character. It's because of his performance for a big part, I think.
It would be nice if we could get him for the next one. We don't know that yet. We don't know whether it's going to be full cast or just the two of us. These are things we'll have to decide while we're doing it. But actually, I've had, in my mind, I have thought about, other sorts of characters and locations that could, that are part of the Witch Hunter world that could be their own thing, like... Or
the Will of the Woods, like Captain Wink-Eye.
Yeah, exactly, like you just said.
Or the monster.
Or even like a full version, a full drawn-out version of the story of, Sancta Gwendala or Wolfen,
Kind of these historical shorts, something like that.
Yeah, not necessarily a short. Could be a full-length story, kind of like the legend of Valhelm.
Nor the life of some saints.
Yeah, exactly. How this or that came into the world.
Yeah, we might.
So there's so many possibilities.
And he says, or perhaps something from Ludlov very early on in his career.
Yes, well, actually, our next story will be exactly that. It's going to take place when Ludlov is still an initiate in the Witch Hunter Order, and he's about to do his final exam.
The title of Witch Hunter yet.
Yeah, he has to do his final exam.
And it will be much like the Beast of the Western Wilds, lengthwise, perhaps a bit longer. We're not sure yet.
We'll see.
But it will be something quite different from Witch Hunter in tone.
Yes, it's going to have a different tone and feel, but we don't want to, create too concrete expectations.
Nope, it will still have Ludlov in there, so...
Yeah, Ludlov's in there, Gustav is in there, and we hope it will be, an exciting adventure that people will enjoy.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about it, you might consider joining our Patreon community, because for just $1 a month, you can just be part of it.
Yes.
That's $12 for an entire year.
And if 10,000 people join us for $1 a month, and we get $10,000 a month,
then we can just quit our jobs and make a lot of audio drama.
We can hire Tom Cruise to play Gustav, or
nah,
something like that.
Nah, he's ancient. I think he's
85 or something. Yeah, we saw that movie The Mummy with Tom Cruise recently, and I thought, man, he's old. He shouldn't be playing these action heroes anymore. He should be playing something like the father figure, the mentor,
Yeah, they have the Hemsworth brothers now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is another thing. So then James Bruce on YouTube also asked a question. He says, I wanted to know if Seven Peaks is supposed to be part of the old world Warhammer setting. It's very in theme, smiley. Or is it inspired by Warhammer? If not, what inspired it? The answer is yes, it's definitely inspired by Warhammer, but it is not Warhammer.
No, because we would get sued if it were Warhammer.
Yeah.
Probably.
There's this tabletop role-playing game. It's called Zweihander, and it's basically like an open source version of Warhammer. Basically what they did was they took the atmosphere and the feel of the Warhammer world, but then, did their own thing with it. But it was very clearly inspired by Warhammer. I guess Witch Hunter, in some sense, is a bit like that, except I think the more the world of Witch Hunter becomes detailed, the more it's filled in, the more it becomes different from Warhammer and more of its own thing.
Yeah. Every new story we create just makes the world bigger.
Yeah.
And more detailed and more different.
Yeah.
From the
but yeah, the truth is that originally I had thought of I'd like to do a Warhammer story, but then I thought I can't do that because maybe I can't really put it online because then there will be copyright issues. I didn't know, so I thought, why don't I just do my own thing that's kind of Warhammer-ish, and that's how it started.
Plus, it was more the Warhammer atmosphere,
yeah,
and that appealed to you, right? Not really like I want to take all of those creatures and locations and then
sort of the gothic fantasy feel and the witch hunters. That's sort of what I took from Warhammer. That's it, really. That's kind of everything. So, but here's the thing that I wanted to come back to is this question that James asked. At least once a month, someone asks us that question. And what I noticed is that the reason why Witch Hunter got discovered on YouTube and why it got, for us, a lot of views, by our standards at least, the reason is that so many people were looking for a Warhammer audio drama. And they found us instead. And then they thought, hey, this is cool, I like this, and they continued listening.
Yeah, so a lot of listeners are big Warhammer fans, we've noticed.
Yeah, but weird thing is, another question that's come back again and again is people saying, you should do a Mass Effect audio drama. I don't know why, but they always say you should do Mass Effect. I don't know why that is.
Me neither.
But yeah, we're not going to do any sort of adaptation of an existing IP.
No, we have too many ideas.
Yeah, but also it's kind of like I don't want to be stuck in this sort of fan fiction type. Yeah, I mean, you can't ever do anything official, and it's not your own. You can't really do your own thing with it. So with Witch Hunter, I could do whatever I wanted because it's my world. It's just inspired by Warhammer.
And then, last but not least, Delicat Vrenita, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, from YouTube, asks the following. Are there plans to continue the Witch Hunter series? Just finished both the prequels as well as the main arc a couple of days ago. Made work infinitely more enjoyable. Enjoyed the blend of music, sound effects that also helped set the scenes missing from many audiobooks, and especially the stellar work of the cast. So, thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And yes, of course, we do have another story coming up. It's another Beast-like spin-off. That much we can spoil. But I'm not going to say any more. Patrons know the title. Because patrons, as you know, are sort of these superhumans.
Yeah.
And
the patrons have a rough idea of the time frame and what the story will be about. So, yeah, there will be more. And of course, we've mentioned The Word of Wolfen already, which will be the direct sequel to Witch Hunter, which we have already outlined for a big part of it. So that's something we will be working on, but it's more ambitious than a spin-off. So we'd like to take our time to make it the best it can possibly be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we've decided we're going to drop Word of Wolfen and going to do this instead. It's more like for our patrons especially, we just wanted to do something that we knew we could realize within the year. So our deadline is March 2022. Then our Patreon page will have been around for a year. And so by then, the next story should be out.
As for The Word of Wolfen, we'll be working on that as well, of course. We'll keep on working on that. So, yeah, that was actually all the questions we got. We did create a background video presentation, so the background video presentation on Audio Epics, which is on our Patreon page as well. So
yeah, and we also did a video where we went over the world map, right, and showed some of the countries, some of which will be in the next story.
Yeah, so if you don't like surprises and you wanna, not that we're actually spoiling anything, but if you just wanna see the process, the writing process and the ideas developing, and get these regular updates on what we're working on, you might consider becoming a patron. And you can ask us all kinds of questions because we're very accessible.
So yeah, you should join our community and be awesome. All right. So we hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.